It's been a interesting last 2 weeks, and it's probably going to be an interesting several more months or years. Um, Seems as though our dear friend Vladimir is going all in on his total war as he's now attacked a military base on the western side of Ukraine, basically saying you're not going to send for it. People are not going to be able to volunteer to go help them out. Yeah, that's not going to stop them. That's just going to piss people off. Good move. Anyways, the some of the things we're back into. Here's the dead horse. So let's beat it again. Woohoo! Once again, as we know, there are two types of freedom, three types of freedom. And once again, we're still hammering for voting rights, and they have a White House has a new name for whatever it is. I don't know. Don't keep up. But my thing is voting rights, because none of that can happen if you can't vote for it. So if Congress can't get voting rights done, people need to be registering to vote because you're about to lose your vote. You lose your vote, you lose your country. It means you don't own your country because that's how you express your ownership in country. Don't have to like it, don't have to like what you believe, but you have the right to express that. It's like a little pressure release, those pressure cookies do, and they're like kind of thing. So we're that. So once again, the three things: capital, entrepreneurship, and labor, the three buckets of the American economy. And then, of course, our infrastructure, which we lost, is some of the human infrastructure because the our oligarchs just wanted to just take the money for the roads and stuff and then leave everyone broke so that way we can't compete. Lovely. Smart move, guys. All right. So let's get to it. So, a couple of things. The tar sands, because there's a thing right now. All this, we need cut off Russian oil into the economy. That one and another thing that was really cool about ethanol using wheatgrass was really cool. I was watching this on Engineering Explained. I know that they seem completely different, disrelated, and they probably are ish. But using wheatgrass as opposed to corn, I bet the farmers, which is actually better for the ground, and it could probably still be grown in the same areas. Don't know. Farmers would know better than that, but or they can let There's just better ways of doing the ethanol that's better for the environment than corn apparently, and probably less labor and capital intensive, I would assume as well. But that's just an assumption. Don't know that totally yet. Uh, but the thing is about the tar sands. Last time I spoke about why the Keystone XL pipeline should not go through because the sand will grind the the pipe, and then you'll have an ecological disaster that anywhere along the line from border of Canada down to Charles Koch's cracking facility down in Louisiana, so we can ship it off because that none of that oil is designated for America. It's actually designated as export, and that's Koch brothers and no one who has the particular refinery plant. So I asked Canada, what you can do is do a low uh, create, or we pay them or whatever, or we come up with some way to build a cracking facility. Doesn't have to do all of the cracking, but just remove the sand, get the get the sand out of the tar. Yeah, and on the Canadian side, right there where it's at. Then the best part is you can also, because you have that one company that's has a license, has come up with that technology to remove the hydrogen from the carbon. You can take that as well. They could take it from the tar sands. They can sit there because of hydrogen bonding. They can then place the hydrogen into the now sandless. Preferably it would be preferably be I'd rather prefer it be just be LNG or just hydrogen going through the Keystone, but definitely less abrasive, destructive fluids going through such a pipeline. And Charles Koch doesn't really give a crap. His company's record with environmental degradation is absolutely horrible, absolutely horrible. From Georgia Paper to all the other companies in his conglomerate, they're just crap, and which is sad because they're trained as engineers. You'd think they'd, we can probably make some money off this other side, but now they're too busy just being jerks. Anywho, and you say, well, are you no, man, outputs say you're being a jerk, so you're a jerk. Um, preparations for voting are voting rights. Got to get voting rights. It's the most important thing. You have to show up at the polls because, as you saw, Manchin and Sinema were bought out, thinking that we're going to stick in the 1940s or 50s or 60s where everybody can't, where only a certain or even certain people are allowed to vote, and you're not going to reinvest into the full society. Meanwhile, you got a billion people that Xi has to freaking feed, and he's investing as a authoritarian leader, investing in their society, and then getting us to screw ourselves over by getting our basically doing what we did to other countries, but he's doing to us. Go figure. Some people might say that's poetic justice. Don't, but the difference is we have control. So if we can't, it's up to you. You got to show up at the midterms. Got to be, got to show up at 22 and then 24. Because if you don't do this now, the Republican Party is not conservative. They are becoming fascist. They are being authoritarian. You see Tucker Carlson lost, and they just like, hey, they're just basically what's it called, flying monkeys, especially Carlson, for fascism. I think Murdoch and Rupert and Langdon Murdoch are just getting off on the power of their media empires, and it's they're not as they try to be a little less blatant in Australia, but they're still that way, and there's a difference when it's right. Are you protecting individual rights too, or it's it's the individual right to not even have to listen to you, do what I tell you, and blah blah blah. And you see a lot of dudes like you see a lot of there's a lot of Caucasian men doing this thing I've watched over the last couple of years. And I call it the bobblehead. Well, and they'll lift their chin up and do a little waggle. And I'm like, okay, whatever, idiot. And then they're all bitching about uh, about dumb shit. Really, what they're basically bitching about is not being able is that they expected to they don't have to compete. Now they have to compete, and they're bitching about it. But aren't you the supreme it? You should be able to compete, but they can't, and they get pissed. This is America, right? This is all about you say lift up by the bootstraps. Best man, woman gets it right. Yeah, that's not how they've been playing the game. Not by a long shot, and I'll get to that later. Um, so that it's the most important thing as far as what needs to be done. And by the way, it's not an anti-Caucasian male. It's just like it's the anti-assholes. Because as I said, remember, it's the bigots, the dudes who actually are actually you know competent, even if they can respect other competent. It's the incompetent ones, or the ones who just suppose get up in the morning and I'm supposed to be kiss off. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So it's ridiculous, and it's weakening the country. And because of this behavior, men have lost, both black African American men and Caucasian men have lost capital wages because they can't get their head out of their ass to see who's really screwing them, which happens to be other Caucasian men. Let that one sink in. Anywho, uh, the thing now is Starbucks. What is the timeline on the contract with the initials from the initial stores? The main thing is they have the Starbucks apparently has this empty seat on the board. How have you? What systems have you put into play to have a human being in that seat? And I think they're up to 100. I think the last thing I saw, 100 stores need that contract, because that one once that first contract is, then the contract can pretty much be used throughout the country. But so when you're doing the contract, understand that the contract might, you have high income states and then low income states, and then how you're going to balance that out so it works with throughout the country, and then also so you don't screw one part of the country while making another part of the country be cool. And then you know yeah, that's one of the things. Also, some flexibility in, because it's a retail thing, you have to have some management flexibility. But where a lot of these management's doing is getting overly flexible, and then they try to wear out the workers, so that way no low wages, not getting any of the benefits, and then making sure that they're too tired, or their head that they're, because by using these crazy schedules, they can't job hop. Now, from a capital perspective, it's like, yeah, it's kind of cool, but realistically, that's really crappy, and it pulls wages down, it pulls capital down, and because most of the capital is being made is disconnected from Main Street. Since Wall Street's so disconnected from Main Street, they don't really care. It's like keep squeezing, keep squeezing, keep squeezing, and that doesn't lead to good ends. It leads to very terrible ends, actually. So, let's congratulate Major League Baseball to signing a contract and getting getting baseball started. So that is really, really cool. I have to do more research on that one. So, and that's going to go in. That's going to go with this one. Oh, okay. So I'll leave that one. So no, that one goes that one. That one goes this one. That one goes that. Okay. So another one is because this is all one, as I'm talking to myself. Rivian. Shucks. There is supposedly EVs having. I need to watch that video. I didn't watch it fully. Just came with the ideas mostly. Is having a supply chain problem. I assume that's probably with batteries and the materials for making batteries, and probably even copper or other materials, which is why graphene needs to be better research to see if it can be. If we're seeing definitely situations where graphene is very usable, so we can probably use, if you can infuse graphene, and if the research comes back that graphene infused into certain metals makes them more conductive, or even that would be really cool, or even using a crappy metal but layered outside layer with graphene, which we got to be able to get it to be able to create larger scale. So there's lots more research needs to be done into that, because it has a really high potential. But anyways, so those things for within our supply chains, especially, we get those things down. So that's one of the reasons Rivian's prices went through the flipping roof. And then I think I have my ideas of what happened, of why they they, they then told the people who believed in them, hey, we're going to raise your prices on on our product, even though you put your money down. We already told you a price. Yeah, that's not cool at all. But I can understand it. But here's the thing: the question then comes, how do one of the things they say is they're going to do a two motor and a four motor. So right now it's all four motors, so it's 4-wheel drive truck. Most trucks are sold who are for 2-wheel drive. So, and I don't think it could be that hard to just take the two motors. Maybe I don't know. I don't. Maybe I don't think the engineers would have did that non-modular. Which maybe if they didn't, that was not one of their better maneuvers. But one of the things they can do, especially for reducing materials, is a two-motor version. Now that two-motor version or they already said they're going to do two-motor version, but a four-motor version with a reduced front motor, which reduces materials, either a 50% reduced material front motor, or 20 to 30% reduced. I mean 70% and then 50% reduced front motor. Now you're using less materials. It's a smaller motor. You still have the same beefy full-size motors in the rear because it's because you're a rear-wheel drive truck, and then you offer this to the persons who put their what's it called? Their option is essentially it's an option. Their deposit down. So they put their deposit on the vehicle and go, hey, look, dude, because you're going to need to raise more capital. That's the bottom line. You either have to raise more capital or pass the cost on. You can't do it's a highly capital intensive production, so you can't get big fast. So you have to, and you got to get to the market. You need to get to the market, dude. So everyone's like, wait and get to the market, bro. Or because if you once the trucks like the F-150 Lightning around, you're going up against Subaru, and so you need to be a first market mover. So one of the things right now, Rivian's hammering at $40. Do a stock split down to $20. Oh, there's two different things. So first, let me finish the last one. So you do a 50 and a 30 and a 50% reduction front motor, and then a 30% reduction front motor, and then a two-wheel drive. So you have three options: 50, 70, or 50, and it will actually be three because you don't want too many. So four-wheel drive, reduce two-wheel drive at 50, and then reduce front-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So four-wheel drive, reduce 50, and then reduce 70. And the reason is if you're in a place that you really, say, a flat area, you really don't need the front-wheel drive that often, except when it might rain or it might get a little muddy or something. That reduced power, reduced sized motor up front, yeah, it reduces your capital cost onto that particular vehicle and reduces capital cost. That's where a lot of the expensive windings and stuff are going to be. So you could then say to these people, okay, now it makes sense. So then you go to the holders and go, okay, do you want, still back to that, do you want a two-wheel, four-wheel, or four-wheel half, or four-wheel quarter drive motor? And for that difference, as opposed to you go, okay, so what's extra motor? I have something like $5,000 or something, 10 grand. You go, we'll give you an option. You still have that. We'll just give you the option. If you take a zero motor or a two-wheel drive vehicle, or you do a half motor, you give them different options to buy options. So you're giving them the option. So that way, and if they're smart, they'll realize it's like, okay, I can use the option to buy the stock at that price because you're going to do a stock split, bring it down to $20. Your target market is very sophisticated just by the price point. They bring it down to $20, and so it's a $2,500. You give them $2,500 option at $20 through a stock split. So now they have the option to buy that much stock as when they get the vehicle. Now the thing is that they're smart and there's more people buying it. It will offset the depreciation on that vehicle. Therefore, it's a win-win. They buy more stock, you get more capital, and you can even probably say, okay, we roll it into the loan of the vehicle somehow, some way. So there's ways of using the stocks to get more capital. And the reason you want to do a stock, I'm saying a stock split to down to $20 and try to maintain a $20 ratio until you get up to speed, is you can always buy back the options, buy back the stocks later once you start gaining cash. But at this point, it's still an aspirational product. This gives, if even if a person can't, some kids coming out of high school or college, they want to be part of this. Teslas are expensive, Tesla stock's expensive, and all that. Work hard, save, and invest. You could have these partial buys on stocks. You can go to the college campuses, hey, $20, $40 every month, 2 stocks, and the value's still going up, and it's something that they can build in their aspiration, and they still have a feeling that they're being part of building the globe, building a better world for themselves, and at the same time maybe make a buck or two. The other thing is, right now, one of the things that's being on that the youth want, and the president has said that they want to pursue, is electrification of the U.S. government fleet. Now, the Postmobile has been around for a long time. What was it, like '90s or something, when they switched from the Jeeps? And it's a really good design. So now, of course, government contracts by law have to be put out there with certain specifications, and everyone has to go give it a go to go after the contract. But you are in a much better position than most companies. Why don't you go after the Postmobile? And it has to maintain the Postmobile. One of the things that it does, it has to maintain. You can't make it look like the Bezos machine. It has to look like the eagle from the side. Looks just kind of like the Postmobile we have now. Same branding, different lights. Same lights, no circle lights or lights, little squinty lights. No, can't look like the Amazon, because that's just can't have that. But that Postmobile, right? Then here's the thing: we get a bond for. What the government can do is they can give you a bond. Because I wanted a bond, because that way, if you don't make it, if Rivian doesn't make it, we get all the parts and the plans for solid state batteries. This way, it accelerates research into solid state batteries, and then also 10 years worth of parts. That can be done with a bond. But as far as that's a R&D thing, and then we can say, okay, if you get to that, then we get first right of refusal, and then we'll kill payments. That way, it increases your cash flows afterwards. But definitely the Postmobile, there's a huge cash infusion right there to make that happen, and it's you're using the government. It creates jobs. We get faster on R&D, and it's a win-win-win. So, might think of those two things, and it'd be a nice, good cash injection at a time that's going to be somewhat challenging over the next several years. Now we're getting into the dark parts of this. I'm gonna save that one until another week. Well, actually, there's a Marine Light Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel, who apparently did something stupid, and I don't know what he did, but he lost his wife and he lost his Corps, his Marine Corps. Well, hopefully he's still alive, to be honest with you, because I know that's rough. but he's still standing by whatever he did. And from the officer's perspective, he didn't play the game. That's bottom line. He didn't play the game smart enough. Didn't. But he believes he had to do whatever he had to do. I don't know what he did. I didn't look it up. I really don't care. I shouldn't say it that way. I do care, but I just didn't want to get into that. But he's sticking it out. Now, the thing is, you can't have officers and enlisted always going off doing stuff like that because that destroys good order and discipline. And that's not good for the beloved Corps, his beloved Corps, which I know is a Marine. He's hating life because he misses his Corps, and in the military in general. But since it made it to the news, and the military works for us, the civilians, we the people, us annoying civilians, even if we were vets, he lost in the court in the military court, and apparently it was picked up in the civilian world. Now, I would not suggest that officers or enlisted try doing this crap, but it's in the public domain, so it must have been on that line to where could have gone, could have. So, so what I'm saying is, it is since the military works for us, it is up to the public domain, we the people, to judge his fate. Did he break good order and discipline? Did he do what the officers' corps said he did? Did he lower the standard of the military, of the United States military, by his actions? And could he have done such things in a better way at the time? Apparently, he believes this. If he didn't do this, something terrible was going to happen. Now, there might be things where they cannot say because of redactions or classifications, but in general, these are the questions that have to be asked. And if he did do what was right, even if it sucked, that's up for his employers, we the people, to say. But if he is placed in, if the people say, okay, we're going to give you another shot, bub, but he cannot go back in at the exact same rank. He has to go back in as a major, not a light colonel, but give him the same slot as a light colonel. And let me tell you, that's not going to be easy on him because he's going to be slotted in a light colonel position with a major rank. It means people around him are going to be either in the same rank or above him. So it means he's going to have to lead. If he cannot lead his way out of that position back to light colonel without rank, well, that's on him. But this is his chance. He's probably going to need a week or so to get his head out of his butt because depression is a bear. But if you give him this chance, that's the price that he's going to have to pay if he wants to return to the Corps. All right. So the next thing was, okay, wee bit ago, there was a thing about, I think we're wholesale drop sponsorship because I was researching on libel and defamation lawyers in Florida. So I'd assumed that school lawyers would have flipped out and started to go into protection mode, which is kind of what I expected. And if they didn't, then they need new lawyers. Here's the thing. I do not blame the school as an entity itself. First off, the reason I had to research lawyers is as an individual, you do not sit there and have even though I know one of the owner's son personally ish, you can't have, even if I don't know him well enough to have that conversation in trust. So everything has to be done with a third party to make sure that this conversation has trust. Because normally, if somebody like me had come up with the ideas that I had come up with, they would have offered me a job. But instead, you had a department head stalking me online, taking my ideas back to the school, and then undercutting me from getting a new job. And then that company, that one of the main ones, that agency that was in downtown Orlando, who didn't hire me but still used my ideas, then turns into this whole entrepreneur thing. And you say, "Well, I earned it on my own." Dude, don't make me Matthew. Yeah, that was defamation and libel and destruction, and then they make all this money. And then what's the worst part is these three course directors still have their jobs. I can't have that. Nah. And so that's why I had to look that up. It's not so much I'm against the school. Actually, still, as I said, I still love the school. I still want to guide. They're going to go back and get the music thing because that's what I love. But as far as my brand, my person, that's wrong. And I can't. And if you don't stand up for wrong, because what a lot of people are doing, this is one thing that a lot of, same thing that happened probably with Lieutenant whatever, he was Lieutenant Commander at the time, he made his point, Kellis, and then Rob. Kellis brought all these people in specifically to undercut me, and now probably Rob is probably probably a captain by now or some shit. So the Navy crapped on me, and then got this dude who can barely think his head out of his ass, and then they raised that person because so thinking he was special, but he couldn't compete. And so the school's going to do the same shit. This is what this is like. Okay, you could be bigoted all you want, but if you get busted, there has to be a price to be paid if we're going to live in a modern society. And they can't deal with that. They think they're supposed to be semi-competent and then still expect to be winning. That ain't cool. Even if they already have like 10 feet from home plate. So I have to protect my brand, my name, and be recompensated for psychological damage and all that's happened over the last decade. So, and especially if they are still protecting these course directors. Then at that point, it is the school itself. If they've gotten rid of them, then it's like, to be honest with you, I'm like, whatever. I'm not as give a shit about that. But if they're protecting them, then it becomes an entity. Then the entity itself is saying these are the behaviors that we will uphold. And then, oh, hell no. Top rope, mother. Coming off the top rope. That's all I know. If that's what the case is. If it's not, then it's like, okay. Then they're saying, yeah, this was bad behavior. This is not something we wanted. This is not our brand. And I know technically that's not the brand of the school, but if they're doing that, then they've changed, and it's a devaluement to my degree, actually. So I'm holding up to maintain my value of the degree I have. Now, so that one's going to go over here because that's going to go into the. And then we're going to go back to that, and that's how that works out. Now, there's another thing is I accidentally left this open, so I don't know where the freaking camera is. I have a feeling I think I know where the camera is at, if there's a camera, or whatever they're using, or if it's just sound. Whatever. I could think of a bajillion ways of doing it, but I just keep my head in the ground, and just play like, yeah, don't want to know, don't really care, don't. But anyway, one of the things is I was because it's always been, and I've even said it. How? Because one of the things is how do we have South America, we have Africa. How does African Americans do business with African diaspora, and how does it do business with? Because there's really not much capital, because half of most Americans are poor and broke. Don't think internationally. Don't think the culture has become so. Yeah, it's poor. That's what I'm thinking. Because here's the one thing that really upset me. That's not you. That's what I see. First thing. Oh, we're gonna come back to this and come back. So I'll come back to that one later. How do we do business with the diaspora, and then in South America and Africa? And the thing is, the Africa has this big man problem. It's only the big man can do things. Blah blah blah, blah whatever. And it's it's one of the things that you were seeing in Ukraine is the people working together, especially during the 2015 Orange Revolution. People working together, just as that was part of their culture, and their culture just pops up. That is the main reason, believe it or not, why the West keeps kicking everyone's ass. It's not the, oh, you got this, you're supposed to give it to me. It's, oh, they got that, maybe they earned it, pluck, whatever, they got theirs. But then you come together, it's like, okay, I got this, you got this, what can we do together to create something else without, yeah, we might be elbowing and doing it, but for the most part, we're working together as a team. That's not, unless it's this gang shit. I'll be real. Most people don't trust Black Americans, Black African Americans, for good reason. Some of the shit that comes out of your mouth is just like, whoa, no, we're cool. I'm not dealing with working with you. And or they'll get as what's happening with my brother and my stupid sister-in-law, who's being played like a boy, are they being played like a bunch of fiddles. Anywho, I'll get to that in a bit. So you have this situation where it's just blatant and horrible corruption. There was a situation where Ramaphosa, he made a call to Putin because, Russia's in Africa as usual. He tried to negotiate, and, Putin probably blowing him off, but at least he gave it a go, and we appreciate that. I did laugh, but I did have a good chuckle. And the reason I had a chuckle, I'm glad he did it to show that, hey, you are part of this globe. That if you're a leader of your country, you are also part of this globe, and you need to lead not just your country, but to be integrated into the rest of the world. That is what he's supposed to do. But the thing is, the mess that Zuma left and the ANC in South Africa is horrifying. Zuma, because not just all the money that Zuma stole through state capture, but it wasn't even getting anything done. Apparently there's an app in South Africa to show you where the potholes are. Dude, really? That's like job number one. Fix the fucking roads. Pardon me. Fix the flipping roads, right? Because Rome wasn't built on a day, but it sure as heck was built on its roads. And if you don't have roads well maintained, let's do a thought experiment. It's what happens when so now you've decreased the value, faster decrease the value of vehicles, slower times between transit points, which leads to less capital, being able to get in velocity and make more money. It's a statement of corruption to the point where nothing gets done, which we saw when their building burned down, the Parliament building burned down, because they didn't do maintenance on the fire systems because of the corruption. If you can't do the small things, how can we trust you with the big things? If you can't do these things that are necessary to run a government, run a country, to run, that's the most basic thing. It's like that dude up in Toronto before he passed away. Everyone said he kept the roads paved. What did the first thing that? How did what did Mitch do as far as he got money for to get his roads paved in Kentucky? 'Cause I remember when I was rolling through, I was right after when Chow had, or whatever his name is, his wife, who's personally I think is a Chinese spy, if not directly, indirectly. Because oh yeah, guys, back to that just for a little quick aside. You know, usually when you pay for your politician, you expect your politician to do what he's told. He does not believe he believes you do what he tells you to do. That whole thing of as far as Republican platform, I'll tell you what you'll figure it out when I tell you. Yeah, right. And you consider and you call yourselves rich people, letting this asshole tell you what to do. You're right. You're a bunch of morons. He McConnell's getting high on his own supply. He thinks he has a power. He forgot who he works for. And you're letting it happen. So, fixing the potholes, getting the streets done, and then lowering the corruption, because the corruption is the worst type of corruption. It's the old pay to get anything done type of corruption, as opposed to getting shit done and maybe sliding a little extra off the side or so. And then the other part that sucks is what's going on with our politicians is if they get caught, they just start making a lot of noise and saying like, well, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, 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 dude, you got busted. Shut your pie hole and dip. You means you're too stupid to be there. None of this screaming back and forth. Nah. And no, 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 no. We need to keep. Yeah, nah, can't be having that. They get busted. They're dumb. Get them out. Um. So, yeah, I'm going to be doing some research into Havana syndrome, but I'm not doing it yet. So I just somebody just wants to start looking at that one. But I'll come back to that later because I haven't done anything on that. I have a lot of ideas, but haven't started researching them. So now we're back to where I wanted to be. Here we go. So the Kardashian clan and the meme entity that is them. Let me tell you something, darling. Lings, I ain't your employee. So you can take that and suck it. You hammered for a year. You just stopped voting rights by hammering me. You stopped the Build Back Better when you were hammering me. So, and you still think you are the controllers of African Americans. And unfortunately, the person I'm about to show walked right into that. That meme demon or entity, because you guys act as an entity, as a demonic entity from my perspective, but I will not say that. You and in works with Miss Kennedy as she's pulling the strings from behind and getting played by the Chinese at the same time. Yeah. So the Kardashians. So my question is, my hypothesis is, since it's the same entity working with Lady Middleton, Lady Middleton believes. Lady Middleton doesn't know what she does. She thinks she knows what she knows, but she doesn't know what she doesn't know. Still working to keep Lady Markle from seeing the Queen. Because you see, if the Queen transfers her power to Lady Markle, it gives power to the diaspora. It gives power to African America, and it lets the world know that she has her backing. But you, working with Markle, I mean not Markle, with Middleton, keep pulling Markle back, keep destroying her power, all in the names of blackness, as so this little gangbanger slash news anchor said, without saying, in an attempt to attack me. Let me explain something to you. Kamala Harris, the vice president, yes, she's Asian, East Asian, Indian American on her mother's side. And yes, culturally, because she went to schools with black African Americans, he's considered slightly black. But make no mistake about it, she would have not gone to Stanford if it wasn't without her Jamaicanness. And every time it's the same shit that my sister-in-law did to my brother about being black and all this shit. She got my brother fucked up on drugs, then trapped him with a kid, and now he has to he's been. I give it to him. My mom, and then fucked, and then our mom changed and attacked my sister and myself, and then started attacking my sister's kids. And then, when it comes time to protect our family, you fuckers are protecting this fucking, pardon my language, this damn drug dealer who would kill them. Yeah, I'm not so fond of the whole black thing. So, and now, working with Lady Middleton, Mar- um, working with Lady Middleton, even if you don't realize it, to keep Lady Markle from seeing the Queen and having a transference of power. Like a bunch of idiots. And two, notice I said, why aren't you helping with voting rights? You're all in on the whole Julius Jones. Where's your thing about voting rights? You think I'm just rambling? There's no threat to my life. Trust me, there's lots of threats to my life. While you sit there with, well, sachet, and, oh, you need to go fuck yourself. Your whole thing was to try to sit there and say the criminals are the masculine of the African American community. And now you know what my personality trait is, and it ain't and it is exceptionally masculine. I ain't your Huckleberry. You think it was like, oh, he's just talking, he's this night. No, 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 no. There's no reason to be upset about things. And then the hypothesis, you've proven that the hypothesis of the externalization, not proven it, but start to build a body of evidence on that hypothesis of externalization. And using black African American culture to enrich yourself. So you have to make a big noise so that it's quiet, and then louder the noise. It's like the loud talkers in New York. They try to talk over your internal thinking. It's the first way I always know. It's always like, okay, you from New York, you're a loud talker, or you're from the South, a loud talker. A lot of black Americans do that loud talking type of way of, it's a way of jackknifing your emotion set, and then you have to try to shut it down, and then they wait to see how they can, it's hilarious. Well, once you know it, it's like, oh, all right, you're trying to shiest me. Whatever. So, I ain't your employee. I know, darling. I forgot your name. I don't know if you were a gangbanger back in the day, but your rhythms are Crip. So, and this little thing here was a direct attack on me. And she was talking about the vice president and trying to say because I know Jamaicans, we tend to be a royal pain in the ass. We're absolutely driven. Well, because here's the thing about Jamaica. Jamaica was and was the crown jewel of the old British Empire. And Jamaicans, even though, quote, black, Jamaicans are Arawak, Spanish, Caucasian, out of many, one people. We have the Rasta who went to the frickin' hills and said, nah, we ain't taking that whip. You have all the money flowing in and out of the continent going through Jamaica. We don't bow. And there was destruction, and Manly made that mistake, but there was so much, but that is being slowly pushed out of the culture. So, yeah, our gangsters are ruthless. Jamaican gangsters are absolutely ruthless. They just don't have the backing of the Kremlin or of the Parliament like the Vori has the backing of the Kremlin. Thankfully, because the criminals should never run things. Because you see what happens in Mexico. Because you can't have the most dangerous profession is being a journalist. Because the cartels and their corrupt government kills their journalist, and then they keep everybody poor, and then China's getting us to say, well, you got to build a factory down there, therefore leaving Americans broke, and then these people are going to just pocket all the change. There's good people down there, and their government's screwing them. All kind of relates. So you still owe the Kardashians, Jenner Kardashian clan, you owe Africa America billions. So I suggest you get going with that voting rights. Now the final one, because you keep Lady Markle's mother is trying to keep her fingers in LinkedIn. I've yet to see Harry and Markle go and address the Queen. And Markle is running like a child. And I get it. The the British, to a degree, the British tabloids always are trying to say Middleton is the positive one and Markle is the negative one, and they're doing this dialectic, and they dump all the negative on Markle and say how pretty. Middleton's a piece of crap, personally. Just what she's done to Markle was horrible. She keeps the brothers from talking to each other so she can manipulate William. The brothers should still be talking to each other, and then watch the and then go, yeah, did she do that? Yeah, did she try to play? Yeah, can you believe that shit? Yeah, dude, they should never have lost their ability to communicate with each other. But Middleton's doing that. Middleton and Camilla working together are doing that on purpose. And but Markle will not get, because the Kardashians are trying to maintain power over Markle because they are saying they're the global elite. Darling, you have no idea what you have no idea. You might be, oh, I got the Chris is very good at manipulating the media. There are things of this earth that you can begin to fathom, if you could even begin to fathom. Prince Harry, well, as a royal, your majesty, your royal highness, one does not take orders, but it is highly suggested you leave and return to England to see your grandmother. And you leave behind Lady Markle's mother. Because all she is trying to do is gain her manipulations. She will attack you if you tell her that she has to stay. Then Lady Markle will do so as well. If you guys are not communicating, if you're finally communicating and you're starting to learn how to actually freaking communicate, she'll understand. But the mother-in-law has to stay in America. And it is suggested you leave within the day or so. I will not say why, but I will just say I suggest you do so. She needs to quit running. She needs to actually. There's a thing we all know on one physical way, we know that children, when they look into the eyes of their mother and father, they get their patterns. The younger those patterns are, those patterns progress outwards. Your kids need to go meet their grandmother, like really know their grandmother. And two, it's a way of standing up to Middleton and Camilla. And then on a more metaphysical level, that I don't want. You just have to experience. The tabloids are going to do what the tabloids do, but for the but the power can only be transferred because one Middleton is arises to queen or Camilla arises to queen, and if you have not transferred if Queen Elizabeth the First, Her Majesty has not transferred power to Markle, they will attack unrelentingly. And they think Middleton and Camilla think they're going to use my brother and my dumb sister-in-law to to as a power set. Here's the irony: my brother will never be able to rise to the psychological heights as long as he's with that woman. Because for him, if he was to do so, he would then see her as the true depth of what she is. And she will not be able to have any control at that point, and she will not allow that to happen. Irony, isn't it? So, you can say all the black thing all you want. The vice president, if you wish to have a black, she's black, Indian, Jamaican American. But you cutting out the Jamaicanness, only reason she's vice president is because of the Jamaicanness in her, of her culture. And how dare you devalue it because you can't live up to it. Now, on to Ukraine and the major wars throughout the world. Yes, Russia is all throughout the place, but we must stop them in Ukraine. As best at while maintaining our power structure, of course. So right now, Russia's bombing. Let's see, Elon can make a buck. See what you can do with the Boring Company. I'm sure your engineers can come up with some really wild ideas that are also profitable that can help. Slava Ukraine. Glory to democracy. And may the flag still wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave.